You could also go to jaredvan.com/precision teaching for videos on today's topics. I wrote a chapter in this book incorporating applied behavior analysis into the general education classroom. And that chapter is on precision teaching, which is what I will be talking about today. One of the quotes about precision teaching that I really think is important is that acceleration may be the first truly unbiased measure of aptitude in educational literature. And I'm going to be conducting some research on that to bring that to light. Now, I'll share the QR code more at the end of the slides, but for now, let's get into it. So, precision teaching is an evidence-based measurement and decision-making system that enables educators to evaluate instruction using the standard acceleration chart. You may see that precision teaching isn't a method of teaching per se, but it is a system of precise behavior detection, measurement, and decision-making to help determine the effects of any intervention or instructional implementation, which means that you can use whichever intervention or method of instruction you want, and precision teaching helps with measurement and timely decision making. So there are 4 steps to precision teaching, and then those are linked to the 4 guiding principles of precision teaching. The first step is pinpoint. We use pinpoint plus instead of an operational definition, and we'll get into that. Then the second step is record, which is where you collect your data. Then the third step is change, where you analyze the data on the standard acceleration chart, making a change if the data suggests a need for modification or a new intervention. Then finally, we have try again, which is where if a performance and learning data do not demonstrate adequate progress, iterations continue with new interventions and personalized strategies. And the behavior change agent or the teacher or behavior analyst, they never change and give up on the learner. They never give up on the learner. So the 4 guiding principles are: the learner knows best, use only observable data, measure behavior using frequency. When precision teachers talk about frequency, we mean count over time, and then chart data on the standard acceleration chart. You are not precision teaching if you're not using the standard acceleration chart. So let's keep going. These are some of the academic areas that precision teaching has been applied to, such as basic literacy skills, math fact fluency, writing and spelling, college course concepts, and fluency-based curricula. In fact, Morningside Academy has an entire curriculum based with precision teaching embedded into it. And Dr. Kent Johnson, who is now the president of ABAI, came up with Morningside Academy back in like the 80s, and I highly recommend anybody go do some research into it. Now, PT has also been used in the fields of autism and intellectual disabilities and all types of other disabilities as well. But for now, we're just going to talk about the academic applications. So there's a lot of ways to talk about precision teaching, and it can be confusing for a lot of people. The way that I'm going to conceptualize it today is by talking about my 5 big measurement issues in ABA and education, and how precision teaching fixes those and make those no more problems no more. The first problem is using sessions as a unit of time, then using operational definitions instead of pinpoint plus, using percent correct instead of frequency, using a non-standard line graph instead of a standard acceleration chart. And number 5 is measuring an absolute value instead of relative change. We're not going to have time for me to get to that one today, but I have videos on my website of all 5 of these measurement problems that are between 2 to 5.5 minutes that you can look up and share with any individual you'd like. So let's get into this first problem, using sessions as a unit of time. This is one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to our field, because when you look across that x-axis, that horizontal axis, you have to ask, how long is a session? Are all sessions the same length? Does more than one session occur on the same day? And if so, how many, and what effect does that have on the data display? Also, how much time elapses between each session? When you look at posters, when you look at presentations, and when you look at studies that you are reading that are published, you should ask, how can they accurately and reliably compare the effects of their intervention with others when session is such an ambiguous and unknown unit of time? We need to be using standard units. Standard units of time are seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years. Applied behavior analysis is the natural science of behavior, And if we really want to be that natural science that we are and that we purport to be, we need to be reporting across these standard units of time. A great example is this one in this quote as to why it's a problem. If a teacher providing data that occurred 1 minute one session, 2 minutes the next, and 3 minutes the third session may show an ascending trend completely due to the artifact of giving students increasingly larger amounts of time each session. Now, if you're seeing sessions running across that x-axis, you should question at least how long is a session and are they all the same length? Because this affects how practitioners make decisions. But fortunately, we got a solution for that in precision teaching. We show and we use the standard acceleration chart. Now, each daily per minute standard acceleration chart is the same. They are standardized. They have these thick blue lines, and those are Sunday lines. And then every day after it is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, followed by another thick blue line. That's another Sunday. And with the standard acceleration chart, precision teachers note what calendar day a behavior occurred on and how long that observation time is. If you look over to the right in that red box, you can see times: 24 hours, 10 hours, 1 hour, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. We note how long was the observation time and what day it occurred on. It is a more precise way to describe and detect data, and it provides enough information for the data to be replicated. All you need is a standard acceleration chart, and you can see exactly what was done, when it was done, how it was done, and how to replicate it. That's problem number one. Let's move on to problem number two. Problem number two is using operational definitions instead of a pinpoint plus. Let's talk about these problems. Operational definitions have 5 overall shortcomings. 1, they differ from the constructs they represent. 2, they are often subjective and arbitrary. 3, they are difficult to operationalize and measure accurately. 4, they may lead to low signal detection for measuring a target behavior. Let's say 3 or 4. That's supposed to be 4. 5, they may not match with the actual events of people who experience the operationalized target behavior. Also, there's no formula for making them. Everyone just slaps together a combination of words until they feel like the description is good enough. There's no standardization. So many times the description ends up ambiguous, subjective, and hard to detect accurately. Additionally, how many times have you seen an operational definition that has more than one behavior included, or have subjective terms like forcefully or intentionally, or even be hella long, exceeding 30 words or more? Well, this affects how practitioners make decisions. Precision teaching has a solution. In precision teaching, we use the pinpoint plus. A pinpoint plus has a formula for construction, which is a learning channel, a movement cycle, and a context. The pinpoint movement cycle includes an action verb, an object or an event that receives the action, and a comprehensively defined context where the observation of the action verb and object or event occurs. And the plus is the learning channel. Pinpoints represent an alternative for describing behavior targets or target behaviors. A fully formed pinpoint enhances detection of the target behavior, directly represents the target selected for observation, and improves communication among all stakeholders. Additionally, pinpoints may also provide better detection accuracy than operational definitions. But don't just take my word for it. I've got receipts. Check out these data. Cabina et al. 2022 compared the detection accuracy of an operational definition versus a pinpoint for observing self-injurious behavior, specifically head hitting in videos. If you want to learn more about Pinpoint Plus, you could definitely get the book or look at some of my videos. But you can see on these data that operational definitions had a 75% detection accuracy compared to the 93% detection accuracy of pinpoints. Also, look at that detection range between the two. This affects how practitioners make decisions, because if you can't detect it accurately when it's happening, all your data is going to be messed up. And I also want to kind of hit on the learning channels. Learning channels tell how sensory information comes in and how the information goes out, because behavior is not emitted, it is permitted by the environment. With these learning channels, we can describe the way that those sensory information come in and go out. And this matrix is specifically for academic, personal, social learning, but there are other matrices that exist. The three most relevant ways that skills are tested to see if learning occurred are see, say, such as reading aloud, hear, write, such as spelling words from dictation, and see, write, such as solving math problems. But in the classroom, we even have other ones, such as hear, say, where a child or a learner will hear a question and say the answer. What the learning channel helps us do is it helps us teach the way we test and test the way we teach. We need to make sure that if we expect them to see questions and write the answer, then we need to teach that way. We can't always expect them to be able to move over their skills from being able to hear it and say it to being able to see it and write it, because those are different learning channels. So we're giving our learners more opportunities to learn however works best for them. And there are so many benefits to using learning channels. Let's move on. Here we go. So one of the cool things about these learning channels is precision teachers have been using them for a long time. They've been using them so long that they've been able to find performance standards or fluency aims. These are aims for students or learners to reach to be able to gain fluency, which is the fluid combination of accuracy plus speed, which characterizes competent performance. So for example, there are reading fluency aims, math, spelling, and handwriting. There are many more, but this is all I can fit on the slide. But you can see it says see, say, letter sounds, and it says 120 to 100 sounds per minute. Now, we always pick the bigger number first because we want our students to reach to the top. But if you notice, each one says per minute. It does not say percent. And there's a very specific reason why we don't use percent and we use frequency, which is count over time. Let's talk about it. Here we have data from three groups of people. A group with intellectual disabilities, age 12 to 57, public school children, age 5 to 7, and adult therapists and administrators working at the state school. When we analyze behavior using measures as insensitive as percent correct, we cannot detect any differences between these three groups. Therefore, decision-making is hampered by such an insensitive measurement. You can see over here, it says copy numerals, write ones, label pictures, label numbers. Everybody seems like they're performing at the same rate, at the same level, because in percent, it shows that the students with intellectual disabilities are performing at the same level as non-disabled adults. But if we look at frequency, we get a different picture. Here, when we measure with frequency, which is count per time, we can see the difference between beginning and mastery levels of skill. Since frequency is used here, you can clearly see the difference in the levels of performance. You can see the students with intellectual disabilities and their range compared to the non-disabled adults. Whereas when you were using percent correct, you could not see any difference because percent correct is hiding that difference because it doesn't give you all the data. You see, in typical schools, they say 100% accuracy is mastery in schools. But accuracy is not a sufficient criterion for mastery. I'm not lagging. I'm going to do this on purpose. If I talk like this, then I am saying every word correctly, but I'm not saying it at a pace or at a rhythm fast enough to emulate natural speech. So when we say accuracy plus speed is fluency, we don't mean you have to go super fast, but there's a certain pace or rhythm that each behavior requires to be appropriate for the natural environment. For example, I could cross the street with 100% accuracy, but don't you need a little bit of pace to do it as well? Another example is if you got pulled over and the officer said, here's a ticket for going 77%, you'd be like, 77% of what? And then even imagine if your doctor measured your heartbeat in accuracy. They'd be like, oh yeah, 100% heartbeat, you're good to go. It's a clean bill of health. No, we're a science. We need to be using dimensional quantities. So one of the ways in education that they actually do use frequency is when it comes to typing. It's like, how many words per minute can you type? We need to do that with pretty much all other measures of performance. And when we talk about this problem, we talk about using frequency instead of POO. POO is percent opportunity occurrence. And poo, and using frequency instead of poo is more kind to our learners because our learners are able to move beyond that 100% ceiling that we place on them when we use 100% or when we use percent. We can better detect differences in performance over time, as we saw on those charts. You can give them the chance to tell you how well they can perform, and it allows these performers, these students, these learners to grow to their full potential. Now, I know what you're saying. Oh, is percent bad? Well, no, I used percent earlier. And it has its uses, such as describing demographic data, but not when we're measuring performance. We should use frequency for the most part for performance data instead of poo. Just don't turn your data into percent correct. And here are some more problems with poo. With poo, we don't know how many opportunities there were for responding. We can't tell how much time was required to complete the work with poo. You can't demonstrate or imitate the performance because it lacks time-based information to duplicate poo. So I highly recommend not using poo ever in performance data, because here are some examples. You could be 100% accurate and still have a level of performance below what is considered competent. Let's say Shaq makes one free throw in a game. Does that mean that Shaq is a good free throw shooter? We don't know because percent is hiding the real data. Here's another example. Two students take the same math test and score 100%. Student A took 5 minutes to finish and student B took 30 minutes to finish. They both were focused on the test the entire time. Student B's parents say that student B was struggling with math at home, but according to the test, they're on par with their classmates. In the chat, please tell me which student knows their math better, student A or student B? Because this affects how practitioners make decisions. If you look at it and see 100% on both sides, but there's a further story in there. And thank you for those in the chat that are responding. I'm going to move on for time's sake. Now, I want y'all to look at these data. All three of these non-standard line graphs are having the same data. They all have the same data, but each of them are scaled differently because you can stretch and shrink your axis, your y-axis, to make your intervention look more or less effective. And this affects how you make decisions. When you go to look at posters or you go to read articles or whatever, you should ask, why did you scale your axis like that? What rules were followed to select the scaling, and are they the same rules across different graphs? And I'm not trying to attack those who use non-standard line graphs, because that's what's taught. And when I learned as a master's student, this is what's taught. But we should question if this is the most scientifically rigorous practice. And is there a better way? Well, you're talking to me. Of course there's a better way, and I got you. I got you. A standard acceleration chart can measure 1 per day to 1,000 per minute, which is essentially the entire spectrum of human behavior frequencies. There are only two behaviors that could probably go off the chart, which are drumming, maybe, and then one guy that was the fastest tap dancer in the world, maybe. But those aren't, classroom performances. So we're good. This one chart can reliably display any behavior in the class without changing its axis. In fact, precision teachers can compare it across different behaviors, people, environments, conditions, and more, all on the same visual display. And the standard acceleration chart has exactly 140 days, which at the time of its creation was about the time of one entire school semester. Thus, both frequent and infrequent behaviors can be plotted on the same graph and displayed for an entire semester with no need to change anything. You see, with the standard acceleration chart, precision teachers can quantify the level with level value, trend with acceleration, and variability with bounce. When non-standard line graphs are used, subjective words like high, low, moderate come into play, which beg the question, how can you accurately and reliably determine and describe the effectiveness of an intervention without numbers? Words like high, low, and moderate are subjective and fail to stand up to scientific rigor. And science isn't just based on what we agree to be true. And I'm looking at you, iterative reliability. Look, we need to quantify or express the measurement in numbers if we hope to apply science to our analysis of behavior, because this affects how practitioners make decisions. You see, performance is the measure of behavior one time, measured in frequency, count over time. Learning is a process, and learning is the measure of the change of rates of responding over time, also known as acceleration. We see acceleration by using the standard acceleration chart. And I like this little quote: acceleration is to learning as meter is to length. One of the biggest arguments, I know a lot of people are thinking this out there. One of the biggest arguments against the standard acceleration chart is it's too hard to learn or it's too hard to use. That's what so many people say. Well, I got you. This is Teresa's chart. She was 6 and she was working on her sight words. And she learned how to use the standard acceleration chart. You can see her little self-portrait over there off to the side. And you see those little dots? Those are the correct responses, and those X are the incorrect responses. The incorrect responses, the X's are going down, the dots, the correct responses are going up. So she's learning her sight words, and we love to see it. So if Teresa, a 6-year-old, can learn and use a standard acceleration chart, I think we all can. If you can learn the science of behavior and apply it in real time and in real life, I think we could all learn to use this chart. Not saying that it's super easy, but I think it can be done. And if that's not enough to get you, I made this table showing each ethics code section on the left and the potential ethics code violation on the right. I was able to identify 20 potential ethics code violations for using non-standard line graphs instead of a standard acceleration chart, according to the BACB's own guidelines. Now, I'm not calling any person unethical for using the standard acceleration chart or for not using the standard acceleration chart, because this is the problem with behavior analysis as a whole, how we train behavior analysts and what is reinforced and punished in our field. The message is we have a better technology to detect, measure, and decision make than the one that most of us are taught how to use. I believe our learners deserve the best technology we have to offer. The only question is, will we use it? Our ethics code should inform how practitioners make decisions. So that's what I have for you today for precision teaching. Here are my citations. And here again is my QR code for you if you want access to all my slides. You can also see me on Instagram, Jared Van Education, TikTok, Jared Van Education. And if you want to send me an email, ask a question, jared.van92@gmail.com to reach out to me. Thank you so much for having me. And that is my time.
Great presentation. One thing Jared is going to do is make us all think about